This is probably the thing that I like to talk about the most with my clients and try to educate people on. The idea that you can hang out on the sidelines and wait for interest rates to go down is not a really successful model. Short-term rates are what are impacted by the Fed. So when we hear those headlines that the Fed is cutting the interest rate by 0.25%, that's moving short-term. The strength of our market is still very, very strong. So that's keeping our home prices high. If you buy a home when you're younger and you make that your primary source of debt, it is a debt in one aspect, but it's also appreciating.
A lot of them feel like they'll never own a home. They can't save any money. They're just getting by. They're just barely making ends meet. I think I bought my home for $120,000 and I qualified for a loan, making $9 an hour.
Be cautious about the debt that you take on, whether that's student loans, buying that new car, accruing credit card debt. But I think what the legislature needs to realize is that the true driving force between high housing costs is demand, to make it easier for people to have a conforming ADU on their property or even two. Yes, affordable housing will get some people into a home, but there are also some people that are just truly not able to and cannot afford that. They still need an affordable rent. It's still possible to negotiate a 2-1 rate buy-down. It makes your payments a lot more affordable. It can save you $20,000 in mortgage payments over the first 2 years of your mortgage.
If you've been following Utah's housing market, you know that we've had some serious difficulties in making housing affordable, especially in the last 5 years. With me on the program is Asha, tell me your last name again.
Klarich.
Klarich. And you are a local real estate agent as well as an attorney, and you've been obviously very immersed in the housing market. Thanks for coming on, Asha.
Thank you.
So it's never been more unaffordable to buy a house in Utah. And according to what I pulled up, just an overview, the average home value in Utah is now $517,000, which is a 1% increase from the previous year. That's not too bad. But what that means is, in terms of affordability, you need to be earning $140,000 to afford the median mortgage. I mean, it just, the pool of people who are earning $140,000 and above is got to be really small. Is that made it extremely hard to find a pool of buyers for real estate agents like yourself?
So I think we still have a substantial market of buyers, but they have adjusted their expectations in terms of housing. Demand in the Salt Lake Valley has been extraordinarily strong for many years now. So while many people may want to live in the Salt Lake Valley and have a traditional single-family home, the cost of that housing has significantly risen over the years. So what we find is buyers adjusting their expectations, looking on the outskirts of the Salt Lake Valley, south of the valley, and into condos and townhomes, especially for first-time home buyers.
And in downtown Salt Lake City, it seems like it's just all apartments, right? It's just they're just assuming that people are in this wait and see mode, the new people immigrating to Utah, and they're just going to want to be in apartments. And now we have a flood of apartment inventory, but there seems to be not that many condominiums in the city center. But you're finding plenty of buyers who are able to find condominiums and townhomes still for somewhat affordable prices, I guess.
Yeah, so we do find some condos downtown. They're, of course, much smaller. They don't accommodate some of the larger families that our younger Utah families have. We're definitely seeing a lot more development on the outskirts of town to accommodate higher density housing that is more affordable. A good example of that is Eagle Mountain. A lot of developers have been trying to capitalize on the vast amount of open land that there is in Eagle Mountain and surrounding communities to build larger amounts of high-density housing. condos and townhomes that are affordable.
Yeah. So are you finding that the majority of first-time home buyers just have to settle with a condo or townhome? They just really cannot go into a single-family home, in general? You're not really able to steer them in a direction that way?
So I think we do see a lot of first-time home buyers that are looking at condos and townhomes because the price point is definitely lower. There are definitely pockets of homes in the Salt Lake Valley. For example, the Rose Park area, the Marmalade District, where there are single family homes that are smaller, still have a decent sized lot. And folks are buying those up, renovating them, and able to get into homes
Hmm.
that way as well. Um, that trend has certainly caught on. So the housing prices in those areas, those gentrified areas, have been going up.
Yeah, I was in Glendale just yesterday, and like Indiana Avenue by Redwood Road, and I would think that would not be the best area, but I was amazed how nice the homes there look now, and how many had obviously been flipped and fixed up. And that's got to be a really tough thing to find these days. I would assume, to find a house that you could either flip, or a sort of cheap home in a good neighborhood. Is that really difficult right now?
Actually, I think it's a lot easier than people might think. I have a large network of off market properties. So they're not on the traditional MLS. You won't find them on Zillow or Realtor.com. But myself and many of the agents at my brokerage definitely see fix and flip properties come across our desk all the
And that's
time.
something you want to have an agent like yourself to find if you really want to look and get them.
Yeah, I think so. I think in the digital age, we're also accustomed to being able to open up the app, utahrealestate.com, Zillow. But there are a lot of benefits to having an agent who is experienced and has developed those connections across the state. We keep our ear to the ground. We hear about properties before they've even hit the market. And we can definitely help a client walk through that process. I think with a fix and flip, an agent is definitely beneficial. We can help a client walk through the process of getting an inspection, and structure the contract in such a way so that their earnest money is protected in the event they decide not to go through with it, if it's more than what they anticipate to be.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing to consider with an agent, like for myself, I've developed a really extensive list of contacts that can help you flip it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, great, reliable contractors that can help make that a reality.
Oh, that's cool. So as far as like trying to time the market, I've pulled up this article from US News and World Report. It's 2025 to 29 market predictions. The key takeaways are: sales of existing homes will grow moderately as buyers become accustomed to higher prices, mortgage rates, new policies on real estate commissions, and the sharing of home listings on public MLS systems will likely vary between regions before being revamped and national rules are enforced. New built homes will continue to fill the supply gaps created by the lack of existing home inventory, especially by home builders who can buy down mortgage rates. Um, as far as here in Utah goes, I think a lot of people are probably in that wait and see mode, and they're thinking, I'm going to try to wait till that interest rate comes down just at least a point or two. What would your advice be to that?
Great question. And this is probably the thing that I like to talk about the most with my clients and try to educate people on. So if we take a zoom out a little bit and we look back to 2020 to 2022, in the height of COVID, we saw extraordinary demand. Prices really surged. Inventory was not able to keep up. Then in the spring of 2022, interest rates really spiked up. That tanked demand, but we still had supply. Even with that high interest rate, we've still seen really strong appreciation in Utah. We're appreciating at about 5.6%. So what that means is for a $500,000 home, each year that home is appreciating at about $30,000 a year, which is great news. But what that means for buyers is that the idea that you can hang out on the sidelines and wait for interest rates to go down is not a really successful model. Every year that you wait, that home that you'd like to get into is going to cost you $30,000 more.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you can outsave appreciation, it's better to enter the market now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think also because with inflation, I mean, they say the inflation rate is now back down to 3%. But if you look at the cost of housing, if you look at the cost of cars, I don't know if I buy that. I think the CPI is a little bit rigged. And so if you're sitting on this cash, your cash is losing value, home values are appreciating. I think your best bet is to get your cash into a tangible asset. So you're not, just depreciating your money.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's important to look at the difference between the interest rates, the 30-year mortgage rates versus the short-term rates. The 30-year mortgage rates have been really volatile. They fluctuated between 6 and 7% for the past year. Short-term rates are what are impacted by the Fed. So when we hear those headlines that the Fed is cutting the interest rate by 0.25%, that's moving short-term trends for credit cards, home equity lines of credit, car loans. So those stay pretty stable. But for our longer-term mortgage rates, those are really impacted by inflation, economic strength, and demand. So inflation has settled down a bit, but the strength of our market is still very, very strong. So that's keeping our home prices high.
Yeah, and you look at just the simple like mathematics of it. In California, you've got 27 million people, and a lot of them are Gen Zs and millennials who are ready to buy homes. And if they're completely priced out of the housing market, they're always going to be looking for other markets. And the jobs market here is so strong. The workforce we have has been discovered by Silicon Valley, and now we have Silicon Slopes. Can you talk about how the Californian has moved into our market and changed the game and how it's and the dynamics of the market here?
Yeah, absolutely. So KSL just recently posted an article in the past 2 weeks explaining how the growth in our population is going to continue. We're in the top 5 states for population growth, so that means demand. That's going to keep our housing prices higher than we would
And it's not
possibly
because of
like.
birth rate for the first
Yeah,
thing.
it's not because of birth rate. We definitely have a command on a positive birth rate. But as more folks move in, and our state has done a great job in creating an environment that is very business friendly. So when we have the benefit of the Silicon Slopes, these amazing companies moving into Salt Lake and Utah County, that creates jobs. That's also going to bring people here. What we see alongside of that is the creation of high density housing. I think all of your listeners have driven down I-15 and see these massive buildings with high density housing, which is great. High density housing built close to transit and freeways can be a positive thing to help folks get into homes and start building appreciation and equity in their home.
Yeah. And I'm old school because I was very fortunate to have parents as realtors, and my grandfather was a realtor, and they always stressed just buy a home, anything you can, as young as possible. And my dad found this house just a couple miles from here for super cheap. When I was 19, I bought it. I filled it with roommates, and it appreciated pretty quickly. And then I built equity, and I feel so fortunate because that was the path I took. Obviously, that's not the path for everybody. Do you think that is still a great idea to buy a home as young as you can, so you're building equity and you're building that eventual nest egg that you're going to rely on probably for your retirement?
Yep. This is a great point. So I think there are three factors that really make uh, housing affordable: supply, demand, and debt/income. If you buy a home when you're younger and you make that your primary source of debt, it is a debt in one aspect, but it's also appreciating, right? So you are building wealth, you are building equity in that home. I think it's a great strategy because as opposed to spending money on rent, and rent is definitely not cheap in the valley either, that's continued to increase over the years. It's better to buy that home. It's not your dream home. It doesn't have to be a forever home, but start building that wealth and that equity in that home. And as it appreciates, you can sell it, move to a more desirable location with a shorter commute. But I think that is a really wise decision for young people.
Yeah, and I have to plug our brand new issue, hot off the press, of Utah Stories magazine. It's an issue that we kind of gear toward talking to millennials and Gen Zs, and a lot of them feel like they'll never own a home. They can't save any money. They're just getting by. They're just barely making ends meet. And I can actually feel for that. I mean, when I bought my home, I was making $9 an hour as an entry level graphic designer, and homes were. I think I bought my home for 120 grand, and I qualified for a loan, making $9 an hour. I mean, now to really qualify for a loan, you got to be making 140 grand a year. Like, what can you say is the best advice for these young people who are renting? I mean, there's tons of them, obviously, because downtown's now full of rentals. As far as like the next 5 to 10 years, what they should be doing to get into the housing market to be able to buy a home.
Yeah, so I think number one, be cautious about the debt that you take on, whether that's student loans, buying that new car, accruing credit card debt. Be really mindful about the debt that you take on. That will impact your debt to income ratio and impact the amount of home that you're able to qualify for. Number two, you're renting, and so are all of your friends. Um, that rent, if you make the leap and purchase a home, you will be able to rent out those other rooms to your friends and help offset the cost of that mortgage. The rent that you charge to your friends in those rooms is probably less than the rent that they would be paying in a big high-rise building, so it really benefits everyone. And hopefully those friends will be able to save up enough money and then do the same thing. This is what we call house hacking, and I think it's a great avenue. Whether it's a traditional home, there are even some duplexes, top and bottom. They look like single-family homes, but there's a separate entrance in the basement. It's a really smart avenue. And getting in contact with a really good agent, we can help you crunch the numbers, and make it a feasible option.
Yeah, I think your point about taking on good debt as opposed to bad debt. Credit card debt is definitely bad. Student loan debt is probably better, but I mean, a lot of folks I knew piled on that student loan debt, and then they're unable to afford a home because they're paying so much for the student loan. Whereas if they could have bought a place and then got their living expenses down low enough, maybe it would have taken them longer to graduate, but then they'd have some equity, they'd have a home, they'd have, a better kickstart to life if they were able to just get into something. And obviously you have to work harder that way, but I think that's good advice. Take on better debt that accrues equity for you and appreciation.
Yeah, and I think timing is really important as well. Um, if you really need a new car, if you can hold off on buying that car until after your mortgage is closed, that's a real benefit. You can buy a car after you get a mortgage. It's kind of tough to get a mortgage right after you purchase a car or make another big purchase. So be smart about the timing as
Mhm.
well. Keep that debt low. And it is definitely better to
Yeah,
buy sooner than later.
yeah, I agree. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about this Utah State legislative session is going to start after President's Day. I guess that's about a month away. they're trying to do all these measures, including Governor Cox saying he wants to build 30,000 starter homes under $350,000. That would be incredible. But what do you think the Utah State Legislature could do that's not doing to make the supply of affordable housing greater in Utah?
So if we look, most of what the legislature in Utah and in surrounding states have been doing is to decrease the cost and the red tape associated with getting building permits. So the idea behind that is we're going to make it cheaper, less timely, or less costly and time consuming for builders to get a permit to promote the construction of affordable housing. We also see, of course, the construction of high density housing. But I think what the legislature needs to realize is that the true driving force between high housing costs is demand. It is unlikely that we will be able to regulate ourselves out of a demand problem. But I think that there are things that the legislature can do to help ease the pain. The first one is to be conscientious of where we're building high-density housing. As I mentioned before, Eagle Mountain is a prime example of this. Developers are scooping up land to build high-density housing, but there isn't enough infrastructure. It's too far away from the city center. There's no transit. The school system can't support that sharp increase in population. So I would encourage the legislature to be thoughtful about a long-term planning approach to high-density housing, to make sure that there is enough infrastructure in place, that they're considering that, the impact to utilities, transit, and the school systems to make that feasible and to maintain the quality of the communities that we're building high-density housing. Number two is ADUs. I think that the legislature has made some strides in this department, but we need this to continue across all of the counties in Utah to ease regulations on ADUs to make it easier for people to have a conforming ADU on their property or even two. And in that vein, encourage our developers and builders to make homes that can facilitate an ADU, easier basement access. And I think this has a couple of benefits. So it makes it easier for people to house hack if there is a conforming ADU on the property to help offset the mortgage. It also benefits renters because it increases supply and can help control high rent costs. So I think those are a couple of avenues that the legislature can take to kind of ease the pain.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw an article on KSL that said the Utah or the Salt Lake City Council passed affordable housing provisions. And I really was trying to get a handle on what these provisions were because it was supposedly going to make it a lot easier to build ADUs and have multiple housing units on one single lot. And I had a really simple question. I just said, I'm a landlord. I have some properties that rent out. They're single family homes. They could accommodate an ADU, but currently the provision is in the ADU laws, the bylaws are you have to be an owner occupier to build an ADU. So under your affordable housing provisions, can I build an ADU not being owner occupier? And the guy's like, well, then you need to, that doesn't follow under affordable housing provisions. This is about, and I'm like, well, so you're saying this would fall under your affordable housing provisions if I tore down the house and built 3 units on my lot, but I can't just build an affordable ADU? And he's like, no, you got to talk to somebody else about that. I mean, that's just such a simple provision that they could pass. But it's like, why aren't they just looking at the lowest hanging fruit? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the legislature needs to make a lot more headway in ADU and make it easier for landlords, non-owner occupied owners to create that additional housing. If an owner wants to create an additional ADU on their property, I think it benefits the population um, and helps renters. I mean, we have to come to the realization that, yes, affordable housing will get some people into a home, but there are also some people that are just truly not able to and cannot afford that. They still need an affordable rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to make that
Even if it
possible.
were like, if you have the street parking available, then we'll let you do the ADU. But if you don't, then maybe they have to have a provision where the renter has to not own a car or and just go by bicycle or use transit. I just think there's a lot of things they could do to make it easier for landlords to build more units on their properties.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, so I wanted to get your advice. So what would be like your um, top 5 recommendations for home buyers who are looking into the market right now, who probably see home buying on the horizon in the next 3, 5, 10 years? What would you tell them they should start doing?
Okay. So if you are thinking about buying now, what trends have told us for the past several years is that demand sharply increases March, April, and May. So if you are in the market, I would highly encourage you to get off the sidelines and buy now. Avoid that spring rush. Um, One of the primary reasons for this is you'll have a better chance at negotiating an amenable price. And secondly, it's still possible to negotiate a 2-1 rate buy down. Um,
Explain
sellers,
that.
so a 2-1 rate buy down is when the seller will pay down the interest rate for the first 2 years of your mortgage. So for the first 2 years, let's say interest rates are at 6%. The seller can buy down your rate for the first year of home ownership to 4%. The second year, it's a 1% buy down, so it would be 5%.
Mm.
So what that does is it makes your payments a lot more affordable. It can save you $20,000 in mortgage payments over the first 2 years of your mortgage. I think that interest rates will come down over the next year, probably to the high fives, maybe 5.5%. But what that does is it gives you time to refinance your mortgage once rates do take that significant dip. The benefit is also that the 2-1 buy down is paid in full by the seller at closing. So let's say rates do take a really good drop. You have the flexibility to refinance during that 2-year period, and any credit goes back to you. So you truly don't lose anything.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Is it the seller who takes the hit then?
Yes, but the benefit for the seller is they can continue to sell their home. They don't have to significantly drop the price of their home. So they still get the price that they want. It benefits the buyer because the rate is lower and they still have the option to refinance.
Yeah.
That option will go off of the table or become less likely when demand increases in the spring and summer. So that would be my,
So wintertime is really the best.
yeah, right
Late
now,
fall.
call me. Now is a great, great time to buy, and we can still negotiate that 2-1 buy down. If you are a seller, it may very well benefit you to sell during that spring rush, but every situation is different. With the strength of the housing market, and I don't see that declining anytime soon, if you can hang on to a home and buy the next one, we have strategies to help you achieve that, and then that can help you accrue your wealth. There are definitely strategies that would allow you to hang on to your first home and purchase another one.
Cool. Sounds like good advice.
Yeah.
Just in closing, I wanted to pull up on the screen. This is where we lived for 16 years. We bought we bought exactly what you described, a mother-in-law apartment in the basement so we could afford Sugar House. We really wanted to live in Sugar House, especially my wife, because she loves walking and loves walkable communities. Here, the range of prices, you've got $3 million for a 4-bed, 3.5 bath on Harvard Ave. You've got $834,000 for a 3-bed, 2-bath. I think the cheapest I can find is $429,000 for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. It's just unbelievable. But right on 700 East, 3 beds, 1 bath, 1,400 square feet. If you're like on the sidelines and you can only afford, say, a place that's 450 and below, would you jump into something like this right on 700 East that just a lot of undesirables, but still it's a house and still it's probably going to appreciate, but it's on a busy road? Would you even get into something like that?
I think it depends on your situation and what kind of lifestyle you want. I have a few clients right now that their max price is 500,000. There's actually a lot on the market right now.
Yeah, I'm surprised they
Under
found something, right?
500,000. I actually, I scour the MLS every day. There's quite a bit in the 350 to 400 range as well. But if you're a younger person who wants to be kind of in the thick of it and live on 7th East, if it doesn't bother you, great. It depends on what you're looking
If
for.
you got 3 roommates ready to move in,
Yeah,
and 2 of them will bunk up and they'll each pay you over $500, why not?
yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
well, thanks so much for coming on, Asha.
Yeah,
Really
thank
appreciate it.
you. I
How
appreciate
how
it.
do people get a hold of you?
So you can reach me via email at Asha, ASHA, at Prex, PREXRE.com. You can also call me or text me anytime, 801-907-5505. I also have a website, elevatedutahhomes.com. You can search all of my properties there as well and find ways to contact me. One of the benefits of reaching out to me or contacting me through my website, I don't sell data. You're getting directly to me, a small business owner, a local. When you put your phone number or your email into some of the other larger sites, you never know who you're going to get.
Yeah, if you put your data into even a mortgage calculator, you're going to get contacted like right away. So that's good to know. So Elevated Utah Homes, Asha with an A, at Prex.com.
Prex RE.
Prex RE. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And if you want to learn more about Gen X, Gen Z's, millennials tips for navigating 2025, this magazine this month is dedicated to you. That's the feature story. But we've got a bunch of things about what you can do to find incredible powder in the wintertime. Great stories about like yoga, where you can find the best hot yoga in Sugar House. So it's a where to go, what to see magazine, but it also has important local journalism. And then I also got to plug Faces of Utah magazine. This is the magazine we launched just this past Thanksgiving. And this is a magazine full of entrepreneur success stories. So if you've wanted to know how you can start a business or want to learn about the local community and how awesome businesses were started, we have all these incredible entrepreneur success stories. Face of Utah Real Estate. Do you know that guy? He's the guy who runs Berkshire Hathaway.
Yes.
He's the face of Utah Real Estate, and then we have face of interior design, and basically it's just all these awesome success stories of entrepreneurs. And Quality Billiards was on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And anyway, go pick this up if you can. There's not many left, but the best way to get it is go out to utahstories.com, become a member of our website. You'll get online exclusive access to all our content, and we'll send this to you, Faces, absolutely free every single quarter that it comes out. And it's just $5 a month to be a supporting member. All right. With that, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. All right. Great.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.